What? Cricket. Parktown prawn.
Yeah, how's it?
Okay, no.
Yeah, let's remove it.
Okay, cool. We just want to test lip sync with you. And Tulas, once he's done his fancy mic.
This mic is problematic. Where is this Enoch camera? How come you are seeing me and I'm not seeing you?
Video's good.
Okay, is it okay?
That's the program.
Oh, this is the program.
Tulas, can you just hold that
Up.
thing there? Well, not the paper, that lapel. And just do your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Where is it? Oh, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Enoch camera, I can see you. Thank you very much. I'm glad that you can see me and I can see you. I'm with Narisa Subramani here, who is very good with makeup. Yes, indeed.
My God, now if that wasn't actually the sum total of my skills as a human being. Thank you, Tshediso.
It's one off. One off. Okay.
Hey, I'll have you know. I'm
So this is better, right?
resourceful.
Very savvy and resourceful is Narisa. Okay. So can I tuck in my shirt now?
Yes.
Because he starts shouting at me. And, oh, you pulled it. Oh, you pulled it. Yeah.
You go Eskom.
Over there, that one there.
Yeah.
We're really for the 11 crossing, hey?
Eh?
Yeah.
Man. Kidding. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The media briefing is supposed to start at 11:30.
I've signed you guys and you just have to go and write your signature.
Oh.
There's a media table on your left hand side. Just
But
sign.
who knows? We may be on African time. So this room really has bad network. Even sending an SMS is a problem.
They should be asked, we'll ask these guys. There was a wireless code last time.
Oh, okay.
It's very bad network in here. But you're on Vodacom here.
Yeah, it's quite
I
bad.
seem to be okay on MTN.
Oh. It's not even sending SMSs, let alone tweeting and stuff. Gareth Edwards won't be pleased.
So you're going to have to tweet.
Okay, Kumgani, I'm done talking to you. You are distracting me. Let me focus. Let me focus, Kumgani.
11, ne?
Yeah, 10-2. Now it's 10-2.
Look, let's straight it.
Yeah? War room.
War room, W-A-R,
War room.
yeah.
War room. Oh, that's the
That's what the network is apparently.
Oh. War room.
That's what he's just told me it is.
Yeah.
Try Eskom Wi-Fi.
Guest
Try that. I don't know why he's...
guest Wi-Fi. Let's try that.
Maybe he just spoke rubbish to me. It's entirely possible.
Needs.
Oh, hang on. Now maybe this is it. Just
This is
continue.
where-
Yeah, maybe this is where we put in.
This is where war room.
Try that. W-A-R room. W-A-R room. Not placing.
Same for this sound. Should we plug the sound for the other camera?
War room.
This camera is breaking up.
Oh,
So we're trying to sort it out.
no, because like I think it's
What you were
I think
worried
it's-
about?
no, like I think it's the cable. Because I don't have enough cable. I think it's the,
Oh, here we go.
but I haven't
Sorted.
Yeah, it seems to be working.
really set it out. You know.
The war room seems to be working.
Don't worry about it. It's like we only need that camera at 11:30. And if somebody gets in touch, you can pop her camera on there anyway. They're going to check now. So weird one.
I'm so glad we went for that briefing we had with Andrew yesterday. It sort of clarified a number of things. To be honest, I didn't know much about load shedding. I just knew that, okay, they want us to switch off, or else they switch off for us.
Yeah, I saw that the office yesterday. I was wondering.
Oh, it was quite nice. Here we go. Let's do this. Let me connect here first. Hello, Joburg. I'm all right. How are you? Thank you. Hey, catering. The safety briefing is being done by the catering manager. Guys, I'm serious, I'm not kidding. Safety briefing by Volkmar Verweger. Catering manager. Wow.
Maybe you just had 7 costs, so maybe that's just
Multitask. Tshediso Matona. Shows it. Grand. Sharp. Ah, nyako mshungene kahle. Ah, nice one.
Hi, how you doing?
Integrated demand management.
Big words.
Yeah. Broadcast media will be prioritized for the one-on-ones. That's nice.
Yeah. I have a problem.
Check who's doing the safety briefing. How are you? I'm all right. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Catering manager, Volkmar Verweger. He sounds like a Johnny.
Safety briefing.
I know, it's by a guy named Volkmar Verweger.
Catering manager.
Oh, yeah. Oh, wait. Safety. No, wait, hold on. No, I was right. Safety briefing by
Yes.
the catering manager. Why is there food poisonous?
Maybe that's one of the aspects to be covered. Hello? I can't hear. I'm hearing a voice, but it's breaking. There seems to be a crack on the line.
Do you think it's a signal in here?
That's better. Yes, it is. Hi, Joe. How are you? I'm good, thank you. Okay, cool.
Eskom for Wi-Fi.
War.
Eskom Wi-Fi.
Yeah, is it W-A-R-U-W-A-R-U? Is it together, one word?
One weird word. How you doing? Good. Okay, is everything fine on your side? Do we look fine? Do we sound fine? If someone just turns some music on, are we going to ask them to turn it off?
No, finish cooking.
Okay. Yes, sure. That's totally fine. And you're going to be, how long until you come to us for the butterfly? 3 minutes. Okay, perfect. I'll make sure he stands looking fabulous. Okay, cool. Thank you very much. So we're coming to us second. I'm here right here. They're going to come to us second, but they're going to come to you on a butterfly first. So just look.
For the headline. Okay.
Have you got some more powder?
Narissa, shoddy job.
No, you did a great job. Just underneath your nose. Just
Underneath the nose. Thank you. Thank you. You're very good. I just say these things just to put pressure on you, to maintain the standard.
Is it my relaxed pace of life that's unnerving?
So it's okay now?
I know nothing.
Huh?
I know nothing, no idea.
Yeah.
So like you're looking.
Oh, there's a mirror here. Yeah,
Not the way
it's
I
fine.
looked at you, that's fine.
I must just learn to do this thing myself, Nje. Period. Stop being chajarach and just
Then
learn.
You get used to,
And do it proudly.
and then you get used to. I
Yeah.
sent in more when you were with your wife, busy day, and then you didn't take jokes.
Yes. Proudly.
2 minutes.
Whip it out in front of people. Just watch. Why not?
Why not?
It's part of the job.
It's 50-50.
So
Eh?
get used to it. I put on makeup.
It's not part of the 50-50.
When I introduce myself, hi, my name is Thulas Westmelane, I put on makeup. Now let's talk about other things.
Okay, 1.5 to the butterfly.
Okay.
A minute.
Where did the light go to? Did the light go to the end of the screen?
Further than that, halfway to the halfway to
No, that's not final. I think I said not a good say, but the fact that
this is the half travel.
I can say maybe that place.
See how the travel is.
Say far say keep the no. We should my change it. I think 5 cents. That is
Reducing it, and then you keep going on, see it's balanced perfectly with it.
Oh, you
Can you see?
good.
So usually I sit up so I can just press the button.
How many numbers are? Yes, when I cook at night,
Fine, just give me a little thumbs up.
I've got the basics done. Now Tracy's been through the 12 weeks. She's spoke to Clark and it's cut back. She's had a ton of it. Yeah, it was all part of the original quote.
Teddy, unplug it. It's on. Guys, please can you keep it down? Just explain media are arriving. Just explain.
He's going to stay like this.
It's just gone quiet on my part, eh?
Can't hear them?
Dropped. The call dropped.
Can you hear me? Tshediso's call was dropped. Please call him back.
The network in this room.
Guys, will you call Tshediso back? The line dropped. Can you hear me? Are they calling you back? Are you latched? Guys, call Tshediso back, please.
Are they responding?
They're calling you now.
Oh, yeah.
Studio, call me back.
Guys, call Tshediso back, please.
The line dropped.
Are they phoning? They said they are phoning. Are you receiving anything?
Oh, here we go.
Okay, cool. He's got it. Thank you.
Hello, studio. All right. Okay, guys, the network here is bad, eh? 2 bars only. My goodness. Okay.
Okay, coming to us next. Thank you. Standing by for us. Thank you to others.
Absolutely, Joanne, and that's what we expect, that the CEO of Eskom, Tshediso Matona, and the chairman, Zola Tsotsi, among the people who will be part of the panel, will actually give us details of the state of the grid currently. We know that Eskom has been talking about a shortfall that is the result of that collapse of that silo at Majuba power station, and the figures have been put out by Eskom. Basically, they are saying that the open cycle turbines give them about 5% of of the national grid demand, for them to be able to meet about 5% of the demand. And they're saying that it doesn't come cheap, though, at a cost of about R1 billion a month for the purchase of diesel to power these open cycle turbines, which ordinarily Eskom doesn't use for periods longer than 4 hours or so to meet demand at peak times. But because of the shortfall that is already there in the system, they've had to keep them running for much longer. And they're saying that if they don't get the financial resources to continue to purchase this diesel to run these open cycle turbines, then we will have a shortfall of about 5% on the national grid, which according to Eskom will take us to stage 3 load shedding, being at the order of the day by mid-February onwards. And believe it or not, Joanne, they're saying that load shedding is the lesser of the two evils, because the other possibility would be a national blackout, which no one really, whose consequences, which will have consequences that are too dire to contemplate. There aren't too many options, Joanne. I mean, there's that talk of a government bailout. Already they were talking about 20 billion rand being the amount that they would ask, that they would need government to bail them out for. Eskom talking about this open cycle turbines, it cost about R1 billion for them to run. But National Treasury is also concerned about, is this sustainable? This is absolutely not sustainable from the point of view of National Treasury. So long-term solutions need to be found. We are expecting that at some point government will give us a sense of the plan that will be rolled out to turn around the situation. You'll remember that Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa was put in charge of the turnaround plans for Eskom and other parastatals that are in trouble. And also National Treasury is now playing a direct role in terms of the administration of Eskom and helping it to turn the situation around. So the options are limited. There's also the question of whether Eskom can be able to raise further funding on the market to be able to fund some of this. But also economists concerned that what Eskom is talking about here is raising funding for what is essentially operational costs as opposed to capital costs, capital expenditure, and therefore those difficulties in terms of economically raising those funds, and also whether it is sustainable to do that, to fund operational costs from loans and from bailouts from government.
Cool. Are you clear? Thanks, guys. Okay, bye. We're clear. Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you, Lakshmi. Okay, we need to talk.
Great.
Okay. You know what? Keep that thing.
Yeah,
This thing.
I'll keep this with me.
Ja.
Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Mic check. Debs up, Pizza, are you getting sound? Debs up. Mic check. Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Mic check, 1 2 1 2. Mic check.
Testing 1 2 1 2 3 1 2.
Debs up. 1 2 1 2.
Daddy, are you testing rovings? One, two. Testing 1 2 1 2. Nothing. What? Nothing or not good? Daddy, Steve's not getting the mics in the cameras. 1 2 3 4 5 5 5 5 5. Is the settings on the camera right? 1 2 3 4 5 5 5. All good. Okay.
One, two, 1 2.
Ready? All sound checks. 1 2. Happy? Good. 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 1 2 2 2. Okay. Anybody looking for a voiceover? I'm here in this corner. Daddy. Testing 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 1 2. This is the main one. You happy with that?
2. Check 1 2. Mic check 1 2. 1 2 2. Check 1 2 2 2. 1 2. Mic check.
Hangis. 1 2. 1 2 1 2. 1 2. 1 2 1 2 1 2. Kubili kini yako ke. Asiki. Sharp.
Hello, how are you? Compliments and such and such.
Not prophecy. Because it's like marathon and the reunion.
No, man.
Hey, also, most importantly, we have all our board members here with us. So we would like to also welcome you, board members. Almost every other person here knows about these engagements. For the purpose of those that are coming in here for the first time, because somebody asked me two things, very interesting. Why do I have to give my cell phone in the register? He said, I can just sign in. I said, no, you also need, because they were refusing to give the cell phone number. They want to give the office number. And I said, no, for safety purposes, in an event of anything happening, we'll not be able to call you and you're at your office and trying to take your call. When you do a roll call, we use this to call you so that, but you know, that person just did not want to give the cell phone. And then the next question that we got, the most important one, is today's event. Just to remind you, you know that 4 times a year, we have what we refer to as quarterly state of the system. Once every quarter, we call you here to come and discuss with you the state of the system. We are doing it today. This is the 4th year. We've been doing it every year since 2011, where we call you. Another thing, most importantly, is a Thursday today. Every Monday and every Thursday, without fail, we send to you the state of the system. That is, even if you don't get an opportunity to come and sit with us, you get a bulletin that gives you the state of the system. Today, in fact, the one you are sending, it is number 312. We have given in the past 4 years 312 state of the system. So you are informed of what's happening. And then twice a year, we have super stakeholder engagement. In June, July, we have our annual results. You remember in the past when, before government gave us that letter that says you may not do this, you may do that, we used to dine you on that day, particular day. Today we're giving you coffee and croissants, but it's okay. I'm sure you like it too. And then we have, of course, results. And daily we are on all platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and in an attempt to do a number of things to inform you, to ask you to assist us, pass information to our stakeholders, to educate them, most importantly to educate us because we get feedback, and I can tell you with that feedback over the years we've been able to do amazing things from the communication point of view. So ladies and gentlemen, you're all welcome, and at this point in time may I call upon our chairman, Mr. Zola Tsotsi, to come and have an open remarks.
Thank you, Mr. Chose. Thank you very much. The Eskom board members, the Eskom chief executive, Mr. Tshediso Matona, Eskom members and management, the leadership of suppliers and customers, organized labor, organized business, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I'd like to welcome you to Eskom. And first of all, let me say that apologies for the delayed start. We had the pleasure of the Deputy President visiting us this morning, and so we needed to afford him the courtesies until such time that he had finished the business he'd come for. Hence, we were tied up with him there. But I appreciate your patience under the circumstances. So we are here. I also have to pay special tribute to the board for having taken the trouble to come down and listen to the media. And I really appreciate the time you've taken from your pressing business that we were doing this morning. You will notice that I'm sitting on the edge of the stairs there. And the chief executive whispered to me that if I have anything untoward that I'm going to say, I must just be careful because he's liable to push me over the edge and have me tumble down the stairs. So I'm not going to say anything untoward for my own personal safety. During the past year, we faced a number of challenges that comprised our operational and financial sustainability. These included the performance of our aging fleet, which demands a high level of maintenance, the ever-growing demand for electricity, and financial challenges. We are, however, heartened by the government's favorable response to these challenges. On 11th of December 2014, Cabinet announced a 5-point plan to address the challenges. The plan covers the interventions that Eskom will undertake in the period over the next 30 days, harnessing cogeneration opportunities through the extension of existing contracts with the private sector, accelerating the program for substitution of diesel with gas to fire up the diesel power plants, launching a coal-independent power producer program, and managing a demand through specific interventions within residential dwellings, public and commercial buildings, and municipalities through retrofitting energy-efficient technologies. Furthermore, on the same day, Cabinet announced the appointment of a new non-executive directors to Eskom's board of directors. This act and the appointment of a new chief executive was aimed at infusing some innovative thinking into the company's leadership. The new board, the recently restructured senior management team of the company, and I are committed to restoring a secure supply of electricity to South Africa in the service of our public duty. It is our duty and our responsibility to do this in a manner that does not compromise future electricity supply. We are working towards building a sustainable Eskom that will deliver secure electricity supply today in a manner that will ensure a healthy organization of the future. This may mean taking hard decisions which will most likely result in short-term pain and discomfort, but will ultimately get us on a firm ground towards a sustainable future. As will be elucidated by our Chief Executive, Mr. Tshediso Matona, shortly, significant progress is being made with our new build program. These projects are pivotal to to the security of electricity supply. He will also take and talk to you about the outlook of the electricity system, which continues to be very tight. I'm confident, however, that as challenging as the outlook can be, we as a company and the country will prevail. May I at this point wish you all the best for the year and request you to make 2016 and 2015 and 16 the year of living light. And as we say, if you are not using it, switch it off. Thank you.
Thank you, Chairman. Highly appreciate it. Thank you very much for the continued support and your leadership. Our Chief Executive Officer, Tshediso.
Thank you very much, Chairman of the Board. Let me also, in my capacity as the CEO, acknowledge the new board members, new directors of Eskom. Looking very much to working with you, looking very much for your support, looking very much for your guidance and advice as we steer this Eskom ship forward, currently sailing through difficult waters, as it were. I can only just say that in spite of all of that, I'm struck by the optimism of the employees of this company. The Deputy President this morning, when we interacted with him, referred to it as a glorious company. And that's what I believe, and that's what I think the employees of Eskom believe about this company. And indeed, I think that's what South Africans actually feel about Eskom. And that's why there is so much great concern about the situation that we find ourselves in. Let me welcome members of the media, let me welcome other stakeholders who may be here today about what I think is probably a very important state of the system address. As Chose has said, this is standard practice, so there's nothing new. I am aware, however, that it's happening at a slightly different time. We are in different space, as it were, because we come from a period where we've had to load shed the country. And we said, as we've been communicating over some time now, that this is a pattern that Eskom is going to find itself in for some time to come. And so I've been at Eskom for just 3.5 months, and I can tell you that in that time, I have come to understand much more deeply the nature of the problem, what the nature of the problem is, and what is required to deal with it. As I said the last time, we know what the problem is, and we know what the solution that is required to get us out of this situation that we find ourselves as Eskom and as a country in general. I'm going to just recall what we had said at the media briefing that we did. It was not a State of the Nation address on that occasion, it was prompted by the load shedding and the desire to communicate. One fundamental principle that you can be guaranteed we will uphold at all times as a company is the utmost transparency. We recognize our responsibility to ensure that at all times the country knows what is happening. It's something which I found here. I'm hoping to extend it and if need be to broaden it. So if you like, for example, in this week only, this is the second occasion that I stand in front of stakeholders. On Monday we had chambers, stakeholders here. We had said at the time that we apologize for having undertaken the load shedding, that a couple of days, there had been sporadic occasions of load shedding, but there was a period where we had 6 days, I think it was 5-6 days of load shedding. We felt this was extraordinary, unusual, we had to explain. But as many of you who follow Eskom will know, the issues are pretty much the same. And so my presentation today will cover the same issues, perhaps with a slight nuance in that, as I said, in the 3 months, 3.5 months at least, I've come to appreciate just how those factors combine to create a situation that we find ourselves in. And essentially, we had indicated there that the system is constrained. And in some, it means, when you drive a car with a fuel tank that has passed the reserve margin, you're now in the reserve space. We had been on reserve, but the dial continues to move to that point when you pretty much could have a breakdown. We have all but exhausted the reserve space. And that's a space where we are vulnerable as a country to any slight trigger that pushes us over. That is the message that we had communicated. In fact, I had used the words that we are living on edge. The consequences of this, and I think that it is very, very important that our stakeholders, the public, the nation understands that it all comes down to maintenance. It all comes down to maintenance, and Eskom is a highly technical environment, and sometimes we communicate, but we communicate over the heads of the greater public. Some among you understand this, the technical language, but when we do the State of the Nation, sort of State of the System updates, we are addressing ourselves to the entirety of the public, many of whom will not understand. And so the metaphor of a car is very helpful. I found that metaphor very helpful because it actually says that if you have a car and you drive it and continue to drive it without maintaining it, it'll carry you, but at some point it backs up. And I think this is what is happening with many of the plants, the generating units of Eskom. They are, because they're supposed to be switched off for maintenance, they're now switching themselves off. When we did the last briefing, we had undertaken to avoid load shedding over the festive season. We're undertaking that because we could identify those interventions in terms of fixing some of our plants that could enable that to happen. But we also had the benefit that the load had significantly reduced with the shutdown, festive season shutdown of industry and businesses. However, since the beginning of this year, gradually as South Africa goes back to work, we are seeing that the load is picking up and our pressures are starting all over again. For example, we had anticipated that our problems will begin to pick up from next week onwards. But in fact, on Friday, we had to load shed simply because we had unforeseen trips of several units that took out capacity. When you are in the space that we are in, any loss of 1,000 or more megawatts forces us into load shedding because we don't have the reserve. We have exhausted the reserve. Any loss of 1,000 or more, and that typically would be two or three units at any one of the 87 units or so of the company. And so again, we want to repeat, the system remains vulnerable, meaning that any extra load, such as what we will see next week, or any fault in the system, pushes us over into load shedding. What do we need to deal with this situation? We need new generation capacity. We need a space so that if you take units out for maintenance, you still have headroom. We are not as vulnerable as we are. And I'll say something about this again because it comes down to maintenance. Because we had deferred the maintenance, we don't have that time. We had lost that time. And what can compensate us for the time is if we had some headroom. In the summer, of course, we do a lot of maintenance, and the reduction in load helps us to be able to take as many units as possible for maintenance. And that's what we did. And we've achieved some successes. However, this is often eroded. Some of these gains are eroded when the trips happen. The maintenance season is from September to around mid-May. We do some maintenance, however, also in winter. The point is we do as much maintenance because the load in the winter is higher. And then we are able to, with healthier machines, to meet the increased winter demand. On the financial side, which there's an interaction between our operational challenges, as I've outlined to you, and our liquidity situation. And the main driver there is that with reduced reserves and requiring this headroom, we've had to use diesel. And I'll come back to this theme because this was a pattern that was triggered by loss of capacity. So the picking plants that use diesel are meant to be used for a very, very limited period. Because there was good thinking behind it, because diesel is expensive. But in truth, with the constraints that we have, the loss of capacity, loss of full capacity at Majuba, we've had to use more diesel, and that has put our financial health under stress. This is not only driver, and so I've been reading what is in the newspapers, in the media, that suggests that our financial distress is as a result of diesel alone. When we had presented the half-yearly results, we had shown a trend of reduced sales, electricity sales, and increased debt of the company. That was also a key driver. Some of the cost overruns with respect to the build program were also a main driver. But fundamentally, Eskom's financial health is dependent on whether we are getting the right tariff. And everybody knows that we don't have the right tariff, in that tariff does not allow us to recover all our costs of producing electricity. There's a point where that again has to stop, because you spend money to provide a service or product, you have at least to get the cost of your production, and our business model does not allow that to happen. It's something which the government policy recognizes, and there's an acceptance that going forward we have to address that issue. I thought I should just throw that issue into the mix. Coming back to maintenance, because this is a much talked about issue, is to say that as a 91-year-old company that runs machines and in an engineering environment, Eskom is about maintenance. Eskom has had a maintenance philosophy, like a religion of the company. Maintenance has been a religion of the company. It is codified into practices that are validated internationally, are subject to independent reviews, and consistently have been found to be the best that can be found in terms of maintenance, the maintenance philosophy, the maintenance plan, that type of thing. The only problem is that Eskom has not stayed faithful to that maintenance religion. It has not, for a very, very, very long time. And I think the unreliability of our equipment is a price that we're paying. This is the point that we've been making. And as I said, over the 3 months I've been here, I have come to appreciate how deeply that reality, the fact that we have not maintained our plants, like again, going back to the metaphor, the car metaphor, if you have not maintained your car, it is bound to pack up. And you can fix this, but if you don't do the right sort of maintenance, that car will keep breaking you and dropping you, and sometimes embarrassing you, which is in fact what's happening. The breakdown of our units and plants is embarrassing us. It's a backlash almost of our plants and units, generation units that have not been maintained. This plan, the budget of the company allocates resources to this plan, and that's the practice. So in as far as that goes, all is supposed to be in order. But it has not been in order for various reasons, and I will come back to this very important issue. so that there is a much more intimate appreciation of where we come from. This is a problem that has accumulated over an extensive period of time. The reality is it will not be reversed overnight. We are probably going to require as long as it took to create this problem to overcome it. And we're therefore talking about years and years. Typically that plan is about the maintenance plan is a 10-year plan. At any given point in time, it's a 10-year plan. It's got short-term things, in fact, every 18 months or so, you have to do something. You have to take the plant out and do some intervention into it. So the reason why Eskom had to do this are varied, and it might not really be helpful to go back into those reasons. Why they're keeping the lights on, they had to keep the lights on, keep the lights on, keep the lights on. Among them, I know, for example, is because we were going to host the World Cup 2010, and therefore we Eskom deferred maintenance so that we could keep the lights on. But the point is that at any given point in time, there will be so many reasons why you have to defer maintenance again. Even today, if I talk to some of our stakeholders, they'll say, but you can't, you must keep the lights on, and that means deferring the maintenance again, and that type of thing. But the problem is that you then have a problem of recovering, from that situation. And in the next slide, I make the point that we have arrived at a point that does not allow us to continue the practice. In fact, the truth is that how Eskom has kept the lights on was to defer maintenance and to use diesel. To defer maintenance and to use diesel. So to be able to recover, we need at least about 5,000 megawatts. 5,000 megawatts, that's a space we need to be able to take plant out, do the maintenance without having to load shed, without having to switch the lights off. I needed to make that point, which was in the previous slides. So the long and short of the point is that our equipment has become so unreliable. The risk of breakdown is an ever-present reality, and that creates havoc for us. So we are at the point where we can continue to do this and then accumulate the kind of maintenance backlog that could be catastrophic for the country. Or we pause and really take a hard but a rational decision. You can't continue on this practice but expect to get out of trouble, expect to get out of the current difficult situation. We have decided as a company, and supported by government, to do the right thing. And that means getting down to our maintenance religion and implementing it properly. So the generation business will focus on the plant maintenance, focus on dealing with the problem of units going off for maintenance but coming back and then breaking down, which is the quality of your maintenance, dealing with the problem of the frequency of trips and breakdowns of our equipment, and that way helping us to recover the reserve margin that we require. we have decided that we will draw on the best resources, the best talent in the company. And there are best practice, by the way, best practice plans when it comes to maintenance. Koeberg is at the pinnacle of this, because the Koeberg plant, because the discipline, the maintenance discipline of Koeberg is regulated independently, the national regulator, the national nuclear regulator. There, if you don't maintain, they just shut down the plant, period. We needed the same discipline, and we're hoping that we will borrow this model of saying we will stick religiously. And the benefits are obvious. Koeberg runs consistently without problems for the longest period ever. I can't remember the number now. It was in the 400 days, consistently without any problem. As you know, one unit of it is going off in February. We have no choice but to allow it. It's going to take out 900 megawatts out of our system. But that is what it is. It is what it is. We have to live with that, because the benefits you derive is, again, to have this consistent, what you call it. Again, going back to a car, if you maintain your car, you can drive it peacefully without any fear of it abandoning you. So we will go back to codifying and implementing best practice when it comes to maintenance. We will draw on our suppliers to deliver the required expertise so that we get the best quality. Because part of our problem is the quality of our maintenance. Diesel has become a much talked about issue. It will still be part of the levers that we use, but because of what it costs both the company and the country, because we are supported by government, our financial situation is supported by government. We will, and by extension, the public, we will create much more greater transparency. We will, to the extent that it's not really, as I was saying the last time, whether or not load shedding is going to be part of our lives. It is how do we cope with it. And we will then work with South Africa to better cope with load shedding. Again, it is something that we do with great pain. As I keep saying to the people at Eskom, Eskom is not in the business of switching off the lights. Eskom is in the business of keeping the lights on. But we've got to do that properly. So when we have to load shade, it's very painful. Everybody, the employees, everybody feels the pain, and we share the pain. We will work with all stakeholders in the country to make sure that this is as least disruptive as it can possibly be until we get ourselves. And it's possible. There are levers. Everybody, as I kept on saying, and every little thing can help. We have to deal with this again as a national challenge. It is not just a problem of Eskom, it's a problem of the country. As I indicated, we will do the things that we have to do, but other stakeholders can also assist. And in that context, the government, through a cabinet decision, has deployed some support that we are in the process of leveraging as a company to help us over this difficult period. We will try and make sure that there are no further delays with our build program, and that we'll keep the country informed about progress we're making, any challenges that we are encountering in delivering new capacity to the system. We will engage with the regulator so the regulator better understands our costs and which costs are justifiably recoverable in terms of the tariff. And in that space, the use of diesel is an area where we need to align with the regulator. So as part of the actions that we've been undertaking over the last couple of weeks has been a deep engagement with the regulator, and I'm optimistic that we will find convergence with the regulator about how we cope in this situation. So this slide shows you this maintenance philosophy of Eskom, and it's akin to those of you who drive modern cars. They tell you now when it's due for service. The dashboard speaks to you. It says your service is due in so many, and then you take it over. You take it to a workshop, and as you know, this is how it's explained that if you have planned this properly, when the car comes in, the workshop has ordered the spares because they know what the problems, what are the likely problems at that point of your mileage. And when you're due for the next service, they know what are the likely problems and so on. And everything is done seamlessly because the point is to get your car out back to you as your person. The same philosophy applies to But where you have broken that discipline, you take the plant out for one thing, and then you discover that there's another problem, and then you have your outage slipping out for longer than you anticipated. And when it's supposed to be back on a particular date, because the system operator needs it to be able to ensure that the lights are on and it doesn't come back, it trips us over. And that's really the pattern that gets us into this space. So that is the maintenance, the religion almost of Eskom when it comes to maintenance. As it can possibly be, and associated with each outage is a number of days, depending on what the problem that is being addressed should be. A big part of our challenges, on the maintenance side, has been the skills, because over time, the skills base, the technical skills base eroded over time. And again, if you are not doing something, like we have not been building power plants for a long time, when we have to build power plants, we found that we don't have all the skills. Similarly with our maintenance, so there are gaps in the skills that are required to make sure that this maintenance plan works seamlessly and effectively. Again, we know what those gaps are in terms of our skills, and what there are plans to plug those gaps in the short term and in the medium to long term, working with our institutions of higher learning, the FETs, because those artisans that we need come from those institutions, and we have to make sure that they are of a quality and caliber that can meet our requirements. So training and skills development is a big deal at Eskom. It has always been, but now we must match that with our requirements in terms of maintaining the health of our equipment. This slide shows you a trend line of what happens when you don't maintain your plant, and what having deferred maintenance has done. So you see we load shed in the last time in 2008. Now, what we should have done beyond that period, we should have stuck to our maintenance plan so that we prevent the same situation from happening. But we didn't, as I said, because we felt and were influenced, decided as a company, for various reasons, as I said, to defer the maintenance. And then the unreliability of your machines, this is a trend line. It's sitting there now. So as we speak, and I get this information because Eskom's systems are very sophisticated, real time, as a unit breaks down, I get it on my phone. It tells me which unit where and what the reason is for the breakdown. And it's typically things that you'll see should have been maintained, boiler tubes and such like. Each unit consists of 27 systems, as it were. Any one of those could be a cause of a breakdown. So this is the picture, if you like, that we're sitting. If you had been maintaining, and the point is to bring this down, because this is the breakdowns that play havoc with us. They play havoc with us, because the other outages are those ones that are planned and that we have to do. Part, as I said, we lost quite significant capacity from Tuva previously, Majuba, the silo. And if you look at this slide, sorry. What this slide indicates, this is the capacity as a result of the planned maintenance. So the units that are coming back to make sure that we keep the lights on. They are the rewards of doing things properly. Units go out, they come back, and they give you the capacity. Here are units that ought to go out. This is the capacity that must go out. Now, just to illustrate the point, if we choose, for some reason, not to take those units out for maintenance, we may be able to keep the lights on. We may be able to avoid load shedding. But the point is that you're now complicating and compounding your problem. So historically, Eskom kept the lights on by deferring that maintenance and then using diesel. So now we're saying that capacity is going out. And because that capacity is going to be going out, what the brown area indicates, you need to be on green at all times, but at least on yellow, which is the likelihood of load shedding, the risk of load shedding. Brown, and you'll see this is just this goes until what is it, February. So month on month, and I'll show another slide. Month on month, this will be the sort of picture that you're going to have. And that's a tough decision that we are having to face, to say, do we defer this maintenance or do we do it? So as I said, we have opted to do things the right way, painful with the consequences that are there, that we're going to expose the country to the likelihood of load shedding. So that's just to illustrate the point. This is the same picture on a month-on-month basis. You will see the reality lives with us for some time to come. And as I have indicated, in this is the fact that we'll have 900 megawatts of the first one unit of Kubek out. It's a scenario also where we are saying we won't have the diesel that we want to have. And I know also that with diesel, Chevron, who are a supplier of diesel to Eskom, also will go on outage for the maintenance of their infrastructure. This slide shows you what having a reserve margin means. Having a low reserve margins, or the correlation between your reserve margin and your ability to keep the lights on. The higher your reserve margin, the more likely that you will be able to keep the lights on for a longer time. The lower reserve margin, the higher the likelihood that you will have the lights off for an extended period. This is the maintenance backlog, which I've said we've accumulated because of past maintenance practices. And as a result of this, I'm not going to spend too much time on the slide. You can look at it because you had hard copies. We also now have what are called partial load losses, which are when small parts break up, which reduce the capacity of the unit, the generating capacity of the unit, because something has broken there and you don't have the time to fix it, or when you do fix it, it means that capacity is out of the system. Those are sort of breakdowns that will take a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks to fix, but which, because there are so many, cumulatively take out quite significant capacity out of the system. This speaks to the load losses which I just spoke to, but we also know where the risks lie, where the greatest risks of breakdowns lie, and this slide shows you that picture, which means that in terms of our interventions, we have to prioritize these, because we know these problems, we can anticipate that they will cause us trouble, and so talking about attacking unplanned breakdowns, the actions that we will take to get us out of this situation, this will be the priority. So I just want now to conclude by saying we have arrived at a point at a turning point, I think, where we can either continue to do the same things of the past, make the problem a lot bigger than it is, and therefore a lot longer to sort out, or we can do the right thing. And as I indicated, these are the things that we will do, and this is how we're proposing we will cope, and this is the basis upon which we will be working with government and the rest of South Africa to get us out of this difficult situation. This slide shows you the capacity that hopefully, if it comes quickly, will help us to get out of the current situation. We have to date installed 6,001 megawatts. You know that, and I'll come back to the plants that we're building. It indicates the extent of the transmission infrastructure that we put in place and the number of substations. I think many of you will be familiar with this slide. This shows you the dates on which the different capacities into the additions to the capacity will come in. Again, I'm not going to spend time on this. This slide shows you where, of the build program, the first unit of Medupi is the closest additional capacity that is in the pipeline, and it shows you that we expecting any time from now to have a switch on, which is the introduction of steam to the turbine. All the technical work required for that purposes is all but done. There are a few things that are remaining that needs to be done to get us to the synchronization date, which I expect is really within weeks. This slide puts our build program in a global context, and it shows you that, in fact, all of the coal build all over the world is delayed. All countries that are building coal-fired. It's typical in the nature of these projects. They are so complex, sophisticated, high technology. So you can plan, and you minimize the risk of delays by the quality of your planning and the capacities and resources that you devote. We know that our build was not done with the luxury of all of those things. The luxury of prior planning, the luxury of the skills and the type of thing. We had to actually train the skills into that project once it was underway. And the history of the problems of this are familiar, as it were. But you can see in this column shows you the delays in years, and you see that we're sitting at 3 years delay. The closest would be 2.5 years, but anything 1-2 years to delays. And it's a snapshot because these numbers will change depending on how we track. And this is information provided by the International Authority, VGB. I'm going to now draw to a conclusion to say that the power system will be severely constrained for a long time. Things will become easy when the capacity that we are currently building comes on stream, as well as other initiatives that the government is currently undertaking to support Eskom. Because Eskom alone is no longer able to guarantee security of supply fully. We acknowledge that we need support, we need government support, and we need other generating capacity, including, for example, regional capacity, regional generation that is underway in many parts of our region. The likes of Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Botswana, countries in our region are building capacity. It's optimal for them because they are small that some of that capacity we can leverage. So new capacity is what eventually is going to pull us out, but fundamentally is to do things properly, to run, manage, and maintain our equipment, which is so critical to our ability to provide security of supply and keep the lights on. We again ask of the country to, skip the slide, to do the things that we ask of you. They really help. They really help. Keeping air conditioners to 22 degrees, it's cool enough. You don't have to go lower than that. Pool pumps, geysers, and every single possible thing. Switching off offices when you leave work. Only switching on lights in the spaces in your house that you are using, and so on and so on and so forth. I thank you for your attention. We will do with load shedding. We indicated last time, our load shedding, how we manage the load shedding schedules. and the problems that we know were picked up in how those schedules work and what we're going to do to address them. I have made provision for the further. We can take that that input again, just for emphasis, as part of the responsibility that we have to educate the public. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Matona, Eskom Chief Executive. As is our custom, we'll now have a half-an-hour session for Q&A for members of the media present. So what we'll be doing, as normal, is taking a round of hands. Please, if we could ask you to introduce yourself and then state your questions, and then the esteemed panel will address the questions, and we'll take further rounds. As I said, we'll have half an hour. Unfortunately, we have a hard stop at 1:15 due to back-to-back engagements of the Eskom members. So if we could start right in front. Thank you. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Tshediso Matona from eNCA. I'm struck by the fact that in your presentation, Mr. Matona, you ended up very clear. I think you were absolutely clear. The main reason you cite is deferred maintenance, which you're saying basically we're now paying for. Which you're saying we're now basically paying for. One question I want to ask is, what was the reason for this deferred maintenance? Was any of it political? Because you said it was to keep the lights on at all costs, and you cited, for instance, the World Cup as one of the projects for which we needed to have the lights on. Was there pressure politically to keep the lights on at all costs, even if that meant deferring your maintenance and now we're paying the price? And then secondly, you had the all opportunity to cite other reasons for the situation we find ourselves in, and you really dwelled on the issue of deferred maintenance and the subsequent consequences, and at no point mentioned historical reasons such as the apartheid system and the power distribution, which we've heard from political leaders being cited. I'm just interested why you did not cite this. Is it a big issue as they're making it out to be, or is the issue really what you've pinpointed, deferred maintenance?
Good. Thank you. Standing up, Angelo.
Angelo Koppler from China Central Television. During the presentation, you mentioned the fact that you look at Coburg as the pinnacle of maintenance programs. Are you suggesting that perhaps Eskom should be on a same regulatory maintenance program? And then secondly, you spoke about tariffs as the key issue, and the fact that everybody knows that the tariffs aren't right. What does the Eskom debtor book look like, and how much outstanding debt hasn't been collected?
Good. Thank you. Sort of trying to bounce around. We'll come to the hands in front. Can we take the lady at the back? I can't see you through the camera, but come to you next.
It's Charlotte Matthews from Business Day. Could you please tell us what is going to happen in winter?
Good. Thank you. Antoinette, in front.
Thank you. Antoinette Slaubert from MoneyWeb. Mr. Matona, do I understand you correctly that South Africa has to be prepared for daily load shedding at short notice for the foreseeable future? And then when would you say, as Eskom started deviating from its maintenance plan? I saw on the one slide you had a thingy at 2008. Was it from 2008, or did it never adhere to it, or how long has this backlog been building up? And then just lastly, it sounds as if Eskom has suddenly come to this realization, but NERSA has been saying these things for a few years at least, that the quality of maintenance is not what it should be, and the plants are breaking again shortly after coming back to service. Why? And I know you weren't here, Mr. Matona, Mr. Tsotsi, you were here for a few years. I don't know whether it's a question to the board perhaps, but why has it taken Eskom so long for this penny to drop?
Thank you. Could we close that round? And Mr. Matona, could we ask you and your team to address those questions?
I'm supported on this panel by Eskom executives who have been here, and they can assist with decisions that were taken before I was here on many of those things that you're talking about. But let me just take a few points. Again, as to why maintenance was deferred and when that started, I can't quite be specific because I don't know. But I know, as our conversations and my search for information within Eskom, that there have been references to, for example, 2010 World Cup, as well as references to events, major events like the elections, and so on and so forth. But again, as I'm saying, there are a range of factors. This is not a statement of judgment. When I say these things, I'm not judging, because I cannot put myself in the position of the people who were there at the time, what they saw, and what influenced them. I can't do that. I'm merely giving an account, because it's very important that you understand that these are deep, long-term issues, and that it is important that we come to the acceptance that they are complex and they're going to take a long time for us to overturn. That is the thing. And that South Africa understands that we have to live with this reality. You see, for example, I'll show you something. Because we've kept the lights on in the way we have not adapted, as many countries do, to a constrained, limited electricity resource. So we are behind, for example, when it comes to energy efficiency. We are behind just in our behavior as consumers of electricity. We are behind on a number of things, behind the curve on smart metering and so on. Other countries who have dealt with this reality are much further down the line, because they did the right thing. They saw the reading on the wall early enough, and they responded. Industry is adjusting, and so on. We in South Africa, we want to live in the past, in a situation where the world has changed, and the reality of our electricity industry is different, as it were. I think all of us know when you drive. I spoke last time of my neighborhood, big houses, chandeliers, on throughout the night. Office blocks where the lights are on, because, again, that behavior, by the way, should be driven by the availability of the resource or its scarcity and the price. That's the economics of it, the economics of electricity. I have been following what the President has been saying. There is no contradiction between what I was saying and what the President is saying. And where there is a convergence is that we've had increased demand. We've had increased demand. So the demand side of the industry has increased with the electrification and inclusion of previously advantaged. That's what the President has been saying. So I think those comments are implicit. I'm not addressing myself to that. I'm talking about Eskom as the supplier of electricity and the issues that we have to deal with. By the way, deferred maintenance, but also deferred capacity building, delayed capacity building. If we had built additional capacity and perhaps could foresee the future, As I say, hindsight is always wiser. We would not be in this space. Decision makers recognize this when Eskom was then allowed to build the sort of capacity that we're adding. It's massive capacity that we took one decision to add massive capacity, which will be a while before it fully impacts on the constraint. And then, of course, in terms of energy planning, which is the Department of Energy, we have to look beyond to say, after these projects, what next? So the government interventions are sharpening some of those issues. And so, for example, there is talk of the next coal project, which the Department of Energy is leading. So it's a combination of factors. For purposes of what's happening right now, I'm just talking about the deferred maintenance, but there are other factors as well that explain the situation. We're saying that the colors I showed the increased likelihood of load shedding, which is high, but sometimes miraculously we don't load shed, depending on the number of factors, as it were. But we just say in that period we should be prepared, and we will, of course, as I've indicated, do everything possible. All the levers that we can pull as Eskom, we will do so. But the risks are there. The risks remain, and they are real and significant. I'm going to let the other colleagues deal with other issues.
Thank you, CE. I will try to pick up three of the questions that were asked. The first one, starting with the Kuberg regulatory mechanism or regulatory framework, whether it would be a good idea to actually have it to our coal or thermal fleet. The main driver for the nuclear regulation is obviously the nuclear safety, to ensure that there's no accident and there is no nuclear activity and there is no radiation. And because of that, there are very strict and draconian procedures, including, for instance, having duplicate circuits to make sure if the one circuit doesn't work, the other one works. Multiple layers of safety, in-depth protection. And clearly, it would be very expensive if we were to duplicate all of that for the thermal fleet. However, what we're saying is that there are very good practices that we can import from the nuclear industry and actually apply to the coal industry. Things like their processes and their discipline of execution and their preparedness before an outage actually happens, where all the spares are there. They send people to go and look at the quality of the spares. They train people before the execution and do drills and do walk downs of the material, so on and so on. All we're saying is there is proof that the nuclear industry is working very safely, and Kuberg is within our fleet. We've got access to those procedures, to the discipline, to the practices, and what we have to do is simply transfer some of that learning and experience over. And in the presentation, the CE also mentioned Matimba, which is also in the top quartile performance in thermal fleet. So it's not only Kuberg, but there are islands of excellence within our fleet. And we have to diligently go get those and make sure that we roll them out in the whole of our fleet. So that's the approach as far as that is concerned. Then on the question of how long this maintenance backlog has been building up, it's difficult to say. If I use the analogy from the chief executive of a car again, if it's a minor service or it's just an indicator that, on your dashboard that your indicator doesn't work or one of your lights doesn't work, you can afford to take longer and defer it. The problem with that is it then builds up, and then you get to more serious faults within the system. And then you get consequential damage because you haven't fixed this, you haven't fixed your brake pads, they start eating on your disc. And when you change the brakes, it's not only the pads, you also have to change the disc. So it's difficult to say when did Eskom start to do this. And when it's done with good intentions. To say I can push this until the weekend and I'll probably have an opportunity over the weekend to actually do the maintenance and you run it. When in actual fact you are causing consequential and additional damage. So there is no point of saying there was a point in time where there was a decision by Eskom to say we'll ignore the maintenance, but the practice kept on, and at the moment it is in such a level that we cannot ignore it any longer, and we have to do the right thing, and the right time to start is today, because we could have started yesterday, but the only opportunity we have is start today and going forward and make sure that we don't build on that backlog. And in fact, we actually eat away the backlog so that we can do current maintenance going forward. And then the last one is just on maintenance, also to complete the picture from the CE that yes, maintenance is the focus area, but there's other things that goes with that maintenance. One of them he's mentioned is the space where if you take that unit out, your system must still be able to meet the demand, and this is the problem that we have. If you've got two cars, it's easy to leave the other car in the garage for fixing because you can still drive. But when you don't have a second car, when you take out that car, it actually makes you immobile for that period of time that you are doing the service. Again, similar analogy when it comes to this point. We do not have that reserve margin where we can take plant out whilst we do maintenance and the customers won't feel the impact. Now, when we take that plant out, you actually feel the impact because there is a gap. And this is actually the transparency and the communication that we're putting on. Issue of skills. You know, as people leave the organization and move on, you have to build new skills and train people. There's issues of technology that the new plants that are coming online have got different technology. You need a new level of competency. So training, skills, suppliers, spares, a whole lot of other things. So that's one of the issues. And then the last one is to say what happens in winter. Our philosophy is always to try and do as much maintenance during summer because the demand is lower. And this is what we're pushing. And that's why what we've shown you is actually our summer profile until April, May, when our winter kicks in. And we're going to try to push as much of maintenance as possible so that we reduce the likelihood of breakdowns and load shedding in winter. We haven't done the actual planning in terms of how that will look like, in terms of what would be fixed and therefore, you know, what will be at risk and so on. But our immediate challenge is to make sure that we're prepared for that summer. We do the maintenance that we can do now, and we're in a better position, winter, that we're in a better position that when we get to winter, we've got less plant that is unhealthy, that is on breakdowns, and we've got more reliability and more availability. But as you know, again, before winter, we'll come back and show you our prognosis and analysis of what the profile looks like and what our plan is going to look like. I think I'll take those for now. See.
Okay, let me just deal with the one question around why the sudden realization. It's not sudden. The board took the decision on the 2nd of April in 2013 that the keeping the lights on philosophy was not sustainable for the business. And I recall very distinctly, it was a furious debate. It was a very protracted and absorbing debate because it was a tough decision to make, because it meant going against policy that the shareholder had at the time, because we realized that this policy is going to get us into trouble down the line. So it was a decision that was taken quite some time ago.
Eva?
We haven't finished yet, yeah. I think there was a query on the debtors book. I think the debtors book as at end of September, which hasn't changed significantly, the last official results was 24 billion rand, of which 8 billion rand effectively is overdue. of which about 6 billion rand of that is made up of Soweto and the municipalities. So I'll hand over to Deva to explain how they're dealing with it.
So at the moment, as we speak now, at the first week in January, the total debt is around 23 billion, but the overdue debt is 15 billion. The Munich debt is sitting at around 4.7 billion, and Soweto debt is sitting around 8. On the Munich side, we follow a process where we have engaged with the Munichs in terms of payments, and you're well aware that we had started a process of disconnections in the Free State province, but we were asked by the ministers to not engage in any disconnection until they have a chance to involve themselves and try to find a political solution in terms of this. So we are still waiting for that. But Munich's, where we've got the biggest problem, is in the Free State, it's in the Limpopo province, and it's in Mpumalanga. And in the other provinces, we are following the same route. So we are engaging with the premiers. There is ministerial intervention in terms of trying to get this money to Eskom. And we continue the engagement, but we will have to reach a time where we have to make a decision about disconnection. Disconnection is a very difficult issue because we do supply to the Munichs, and they are paying customers behind the Munichs. And if we do cut off, then there is an issue of how do you deal with those paying customers that are paying for the Munichs. In terms of Soweto, we have started a rollout of installing split metering. Split metering is basically what we call intelligent metering, where it's basically tamper-proof. So we've started rolling that out, and it's going fairly well. However, we obviously have a funding problem at this stage where we need some funding to roll out some more of these meters. Basically what happens in terms of our PFMA approval is as people convert to this split metering, then the debt will be written off. And we are making progress. We have encountered some resistance, but we will continue with that provided we have the necessary funding to continue with the split metering in all areas, including Soweto. But obviously, Soweto is a very difficult issue to deal with. We had this debate with our stakeholders meeting on Monday as well. It does require some level of political intervention as well. Chairman, if I just want to add on to what Mongezi said as well about the generation issue, it's important to note that we're a bit unique in this country in that there's two dynamics that normally influence generation utility. One is when you are in a situation where you have a shortage of capacity, you don't have a surplus. And one is where your plant reaches midlife. So when your plant reaches midlife, you have to do extensive maintenance. So whereas in the first beginning part of your plant, you would do outages that would require 30, 40 to 60 days. When you're in midlife, it's like when you're in a midlife crisis and you decide to go for plastic surgery, it costs a bit more and it takes a bit longer. So when you're in a midlife, it takes double that time. So it takes something like 120 days to do the outages. What made the situation difficult in South Africa, and this is where you checked with your colleagues overseas, we were in a country where we had the aging of the plant and a shortage of capacity coming exactly at the same time. And the period that it happened was around the period 2009 leading up to this period. So if you cast your minds back, we spoke about, the Chief Exec spoke for the 2010 World Cup. We had just come out of load shedding in 2008. It was absolutely imperative that the lights remain on. This country would be totally different if the lights had gone off during the World Cup. If the lights had gone off during the World Cup, this country would be in a totally different country. The fact that the lights stayed on is partly why we are where we are today. We've been in a far worse situation. So yes, the World Cup played a big role in that. Because typically after what happened in 2008, we should have been looking to do more maintenance to other issues. So that's one thing. The second thing is, if you look back, cast your mind, your figures back, and you look at our annual reports. In 2008, we spent 1 billion rand on gas turbine diesel, 1 billion rand. That was a lot at that stage. In 2009, 2010, 2011, we spent hundreds of thousands, not millions, not billions. We spent 100,000 in 1 year, we moved to about 500 million, and then we moved to 1 billion. During that period, we didn't use the open cycle gas turbines because they were very expensive. But as the years went on and the need for maintenance started happening, you had to start using the open cycle gas turbines in order to give a gap for maintenance, and with not doing maintenance, your unplanned outages started coming up. And you watched the trend. From using 100,000 to 500,000 to 1 billion, you started moving to 5 billion, then 10 billion. And now we're sitting around the 10 billion mark. So that is why the open cycle gas turbines presently play such a big role. the open cycle gas turbines is the system operator's reserve. If you don't have the open cycle gas turbines, the system operator has no fallback position if something goes wrong. Typically, the system operator requires 2,000 megawatts. If something goes wrong, I mean, it's difficult to tell you what will go wrong. It's like you're in the visual media. I mean, suddenly you have problems when you can't send out a TV program or the signal goes dead and the TV goes blank and we get the sign saying we have a technical problem. You could see it happening, but you don't know exactly when it's going to happen, when your printing press fails. So with a tight reserve margin like we've got in this country, the system operator doesn't have that reserve. So when something goes wrong, it's a bit of a scamper to escape up everything and trying to figure out where do you get the extra megawatts. We should be operating with a 2,000 megawatt reserve in this country. We unfortunately don't have that because we do not have the capacity. And yes, you can go back and look and see, maybe Medupi should have been in line, but we are where we are, unfortunately, and that's what we need to manage, not as Eskom, not as a government, but as a country.
Thank you to the panel. We have time for one more round of questions. I'd like to take Sikanati, Terence, and Jan.
Mr. Matona, you just admitted that you have become deeply aware 3.5 months, or in the past 3.5 months, of what Eskom is going through and what needs to be done to fix it. Yet you have been setting policy for 3 years as the DG at Public Enterprises. Is that perhaps an admission that you were setting policy without the necessary knowledge, and that your successors and your predecessors are continuing to do the same? And can you help us with more transparency on the financial affairs of Eskom right now? The minister who was leaving as we arrived here, leaving you to be the Prince of Darkness alone, has said by the end of January, Eskom would run out of money. Can you tell us what is the state of affairs? And while on that, please add a lot more detail on the engagements that you're having with the Treasury. Cyril Ramaphosa was here this morning. Are you asking for more money, or are you getting more money than you have been promised in the October MTEF? Thank you.
Thank you, Sikanati. Terence?
Terence Creamer, Engineering News. It's a bit of a follow-up. In December, Cabinet indicated that they would entertain a budget from Eskom, both to buy the short-term RPPs that you needed as well as the additional diesel to the end of summer. Now, did you give that proposal? What was the quantum of that proposal? Can we take today that you said that we've opted for load shedding over diesel as the final decision, that you will be getting no money beyond the 20 billion outlined in October? And why has that decision been taken by Cabinet and Eskom to opt for load shedding over diesel and the short-term RPPs, given that why has that decision been taken by Cabinet and Eskom to opt for diesel, opt for load shedding ahead of diesel and the short-term RPPs during this period? Was it just too much money that you asked for? And can you give us a figure on that money and why it was rejected? And it's only a few weeks ago that the Cabinet made that offer to you. Secondly, other than that shock, I think the biggest shock in your presentation is that you're saying that Unit 1 at Kusile is only going to get synchronized in the first half of 2017. Now, at several presentations prior to this, you've been talking about the end of this year for Unit 1 at Kusile and a similar timing for Medupi Unit 2. So has the interval now been finalized? Is that now seriously the interval? And are we going to then be seeing these subsequent units to Unit 1, Unit 6 at Medupi, taking this long, which is actually what was flagged by Professor Anton Eberhardt and rejected several times in this very room? Thank you.
Thanks. Jan, did you have a question? And then to Marissa, thank you.
Jan Lange from Beeld newspaper. Can you tell us why haven't you started with rebuilding the boiler at Duva that was blown up? And the reason I'm asking is, was that blown up due to bad maintenance? Because the delay in restarting it creates the impression that your insurance are not happy to pay up, because probably, as we all know, insurers don't pay if you don't maintain. Secondly, I've been told by members of the EIG that they are very concerned about the quality of the maintenance that you've embarked on since late last year. That you do maintenance and a month or less after maintenance, you have another unplanned outages from the same unit that you just maintained. Can you elaborate on that? What's the reasons for that? And what are you going to do to rectify that?
Thanks, Senator. Marissa in front.
Hi. Hi, Narissa from eNCA. You've mentioned constantly throughout this conference that this infrastructure is aging and it needs maintenance, and it has been skipped. Do we actually have money in the kitty for this? And I also understand that it might be very expensive because maintenance and routine maintenance has been skipped. If it's going to take 120 days off plant, how much in rands is it going to cost?
Thanks, Marissa. Time for one more. Okay, right at the back with the earphones on.
Okay, thank you. Frank Numalo from SAPC News. I just need a clarification from this Chief Executive. On the question, if this is a turning point, is load shedding going to happen because it will be because of plant maintenance, units are going to be taken out, or is it just going to be a matter of risk? Secondly, the question of postponing, the eternal postponement of the commissioning of Medupi, exactly what is happening there, because it's not clear from a technical point. What are the technical challenges that necessitate, the continual postponement of Medupi? Because Eskom is a 91-year-old engineering company, and Medupi is not the first power station that they have built. So what exactly is happening on Medupi? Because I remember, I think it was around November that the minister said the commissioning will happen on the 24th of December. Now I think it's June, and we're not even sure whether it's going to happen in June. So what is the hold-up?
Thank you. Could we close that round? And Mr. Matona, could we ask you to assist with answers to those questions? Thank you.
The question about the role of the department and my role as Director General. I think the first thing that you need to understand is that when you are on the other side, you're not operational. So the sort of issues that we're dealing with are practical operational issues, which even if Eskom was a private company, the shareholders of the company do not get involved with that level of detail of issues. So there's absolutely no way where we could have appreciated the issues in the way that now that I'm on this side of the fence, I'm appreciating. That's the first thing. The second thing, we don't set policy for Eskom. We only exercise, when I'm talking in my previous capacity, shareholder oversight. The regulatory framework for Eskom is in fact based on the Department of Energy. What Eskom builds, what tariff we can get, all of that is regulated by the Department of Energy. So from a policy-making point of view, the instruments and the legal instruments that we've used to exercise shareholder oversight are the PFMA, are through the PFMA, which says that we've got to get a corporate plan from the company, and that informs the shareholder compact. And so, I just want in that relationship there is a problem of information asymmetry at all times. And if I just extend the issue, we've had, when I was DG, squabbles with Eskom on information, whether it's adequate and that type of thing. So I think it's important to have sense of perspective. The processes for what government will make available to support Eskom are underway. And that was part of the purpose of the meeting that happened this morning. It's a comprehensive set of interventions, at the top of which you recall was the gap, money for the gap up to the end of March for diesel, which is in the region of 3 billion rand. That still remains on the table. To my knowledge, it has not been rejected. I don't know where, Terence, you get the fact that it's been rejected. So separately, however, is to look at the broader financial issues of Eskom, the adequacy of the adequacy of the package that was agreed towards the end of last year. For example, some certainty around the 20 billion, which was supposed to be from sale of non-core state assets, how far that is going, and all of that. So all of that is work in progress. For example, whether we have now a decision on a clawback in terms of the regulatory clearing account with the regulator. We've got one decision. How far does that help us? Can we have all of that brought forward so to meet our current requirements? This is ongoing work, as it were. The reality, however, is that if we are not going to be able to use diesel in the way as Dava explained, it helps us to be able to access that, then our problems are much more dire, as it were. And so if you're talking about likelihood of load shedding subject to other levers and variables, you are definitely going to be load shedding. So I think that is something which should be clear, and that's the message that we've been communicated. So the on Kusile, yeah, I saw that date. I don't know. Is there anybody from Roman? No, that's Mitupi. The date. Is that from here?
Yeah.
Well, but will you be able to speak about Kusile? Because that date is not the date I know as well. So they can explain this discrepancy. I think someone else will have to deal with the Duva, rebuilding of Duva, if there are insurance issues there. The quality of maintenance, I'll pass as well. Yeah, no, the money for maintenance is part of our budget, so we do have allocation of money for maintenance. Now, in a scenario where we got 8% and not 16%, it meant that what our aspirations were with regard to expenditure on maintenance were not achieved. So you can only do as much maintenance as you have money for. In the discussions that we've been having, it is clear that for us to optimize the maintenance, we need to come back to the resources that are required for that exercise. So money for maintenance is a big thing, which will be part of our challenges as we go forward. So the current plans are partly funded for. We are looking at if we are able to revise the financial allocations and the funding for the company on the basis of that package, and perhaps the regulator reviewing the tariff. Then we should be talking a different scenario with regard to resources for maintenance. Yes, however, there is a link with that. I'm going to ask the colleagues to also talk about the quality of maintenance, which is a big issue. I did partly address it with regard to the skills and the challenges around the skills that are available. But what I've been told as of yesterday was that for every major outage, Eskom relies on our own skills, and some of our skills are best in class, but we also use OEMs, the original equipment manufacturers, who work with us on some of our maintenance. But I'm going to ask the colleagues to fill in some of the detail and maybe address some of the questions I might not have addressed. Thanks.
CE, I'm going to be quick on this one, on the quality of maintenance. It is true that in some of the machines, you get subsequent failures when you run the machine back. Sometimes that subsequent failure is not related to what you were doing. Again, given the age of our machines and given the fact that there's a lot of maintenance backlog that we're facing, you'd be doing a boiler, you fix it, and on running the boiler up or running the machine up, something else like a valve on your water system pops up, which is totally unrelated. So there are those situations where unrelated failure, given a backlog of maintenance, given the age of the machine, you do have secondary failures as well. Unacceptable. We shouldn't be having those surprises. And once we've done a full cycle of maintenance, we'll have less surprises when we actually open the machines. And then the second one is also that because the maintenance is so overdue, when you open the machine, you actually find that there's more things that are broken that needs to be fixed than you actually put in your original scopes. And then you end up with a slip on that machine. Some of it very valid because you cannot just close up that machine knowing that there's something wrong there, but because it's not in your scope or you're chasing, the deadline for your maintenance, that would be an irresponsible thing to do. However, again, if we know our machines properly and our condition monitoring of the condition of the machine, we know before we open it, there will be less of those surprises and we're going to get better with time. And lastly, in the 5 areas that we're focusing in generation, post-maintenance breakdowns is one of the KPIs that we're tracking because we want to track the quality and want to track the complexity and want to trend that and make sure that we actually do it correctly. So that's the broad and short of it.
Chair, I'll answer the question about Duva 3 on behalf of my colleague who's not here. So Duva 3, as much as you're eager that we start rebuilding, so are we, because it's capacity that's standing there that we want to do. But I think we have to respect the process that the insurers are taking through. So we have not concluded our discussions with the insurers as yet. I'm not aware that they have any issues around the issue of maintenance. Where we stand now with the insurers is to decide how we go about rebuilding this unit. Do we build like for like? It's also an opportunity to rebuild this unit, to look at environmental issues. And if we can rebuild this unit differently so that it conforms with the future environmental legislation, then it's an opportunity. So we have not concluded those discussions as yet. In terms of the root cause, an investigation has been done. It was a very complex investigation. I think we did share with you all when we had the Duva 4 incident, when the investigation was completed, the root cause was non-adherence to a procedure, and we shared that. When this investigation is concluded and it has gone through all the necessary processes, and the insurance process is completed, then we will share what came out of the investigation. We do not want to share anything now because we do not want to prejudice the insurance claim in any way or form or manner. So yes, we are trying to push the negotiations to conclusion so that we can actually start with rebuilding of this Duva Unit 3.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. There were 2 questions that were fielded for Medupi and one on Kusile. So I'll deal with the Medupi side first. The first question was, when will Medupi start making electricity? And I'd like to start off by correcting a bit of a misnomer. There's reference made to making electricity in June of 2015. The process that we're currently going through on Medupi right now, the first major activity is what we refer to as synchronization. That is near term, and the Chief Executive has indicated that that is weeks away. Synchronization is when you effectively start making electricity from that generator for the first time. So we're feeding new electricity into the grid for the first time. That event is weeks away now. The second event that takes place after synchronization, and it's typically 4 to 5 months, is what we call full power. Now, because this is a new unit, it has to go through a lot of guaranteed tests, and those tests have to be undertaken through a very well thought through, disciplined process, so that we can actually be proven to us by our suppliers who booked boilers, turbines and generators and so on, that they can actually deliver what's in the contract. That process takes 4 to 5 months. That means 4 to 5 months traditionally after synchronization, you will produce 800 megawatts. So that's going to occur before June. June, what everybody refers to as commercial operation, is the event when that product or that unit moves out of construction and is handed over from the contractor to Eskom, from the contractor being the supplier of the boiler or the turbine, and effectively myself will then take ownership of that machine, and in that same event I will hand over the machine from construction to the generation team who are going to run and operate that plant. From that day onwards, the plant then becomes an operational unit making electricity, and we start depreciating the asset over the 50-year design life. So that's effectively what's going to happen over the next 6 months. So I think it's important to correct that misnomer. The second part of the question was, where are we now with Medupi? And Medupi, we have just concluded what we call the steam blow-through of our turbine. It's been quite a lengthy, drawn-out process. And there's been a lot of very good technical thinking that has gone into understanding our position at that point and making some, I think, very informed decisions. Current position is that Medupi is having the pipework between the boiler and the turbine reinstated, and that process will end during the course of next week, at which point we start feeding steam through to our air-cooled condensers, which is the second part of the cleaning out process. And shortly thereafter, we'll then go into what we call the steam to set, where we feed steam into our turbine. And from that point of view, we then move into the generator protection test. So that process is going to take place over the next few weeks. Following the protection test, we move into synchronization. So it's important we understand we are virtually complete from a construction and a commissioning point of Medupi. One of the issues, and that relates now to the question about Kusile that we're now starting to do, is that at Medupi we've been extremely optimistic on our schedule. We are always the glass half full approach. And I think what we're now starting to do is import a lot of those lessons that we've learned into Kusile. It's important to understand Medupi is the first new build machine that we've built in over 20 years. It is a slightly different boiler technology as well, so it's behaving differently. So we're importing that now into the Kusile schedule, and that's what you're starting to see affecting the Kusile schedule. So it is most definitely a well-informed, well-thought-through process that is now affecting the Kusile schedule.
Just to add on to that, I think the issue is, everyone's pushing for Medupi for a date. It's very, very difficult to give you a date. Once we do the first synchronization, and the next question is when you're going to get to full load. And I think we must just compare it to something, maybe make it a bit simpler. If you all remember this Dreamliner, this massive Boeing that was built. That Boeing was built in a hangar. This Dreamliner built in a hangar. This is where Medupi is. Everything's been built, and you can equate it to the Dreamliner. So when they started firing the engines up, that is where now Medupi is. They're busy doing all the tests, they're producing steam. When Medupi starts putting steam to the turbine, that's when that Boeing actually goes out of the hangar, has not taken off, goes out of the hangar and taxis. And when it actually takes off for the first time, that is the first synchronization. But when he takes off, it was a program shown on TV on Discovery Channel. When he took off, it just went up not to normal altitude. It went up about a couple thousand feet, and then it circled and landed back. That's what's going to happen in Medupi. It's going to synchronize. It's going to go to 80 megawatts. It's going to come down again because there's a whole lot of tests to be done. Then they'll optimize the plant, and it'll take off again. It'll go a higher altitude, land again, come down, and it'll carry on like that for 4, 5, up to 6 months. The day when it actually takes passengers on board and gets to a full altitude, that's where you're hitting full load. And that's where Medupi comes in. And that will be a long, drawn-out period. So I think the expectation must also be checked in to say that once you synchronize, you're not going to get 800 megawatts. That's miraculous. You're going to save the grid and add extra power. I think that's very, very important to take note of.
Thank you. Mr. Matona, can we close at this point? I'm just wondering about time. Okay, sorry, there's been
sorry,
so
I
many
just
hands.
got
Okay, one more
one-
round. Would that
one-
be okay with the panel to take one more round? Thank you very much. Let's take one
No,
more
sorry,
round. Thank you.
this is for clarity's sake. On your presentation at the top, there's a quote of one of y'all that says, "We are likely to load shed on every day in future." Is this correct? And from when will this happen? Then secondly, talking about your maintenance problems, I just want to know what is the chance of a complete blackout?
Okay, thank you. Can we please take the two in red very prominently? And I'm sorry I missed you, but there's more hands than time for questions, so I do apologize.
Thank you. My name is Ranjini Mansami from the Daily Maverick. Mr. Matona, if you can just, you haven't been able to give us details about the discussions you had with Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa. What exactly was the nature of it? Who was he accompanied by from government this morning? And what's the game plan in terms of the intervention by government? And secondly, you referred in your presentation to the issue of tariffs, and that it's not, at the moment, is not able to help you recover costs. Are you proposing, or are you proposing higher tariffs for South Africa?
Penwell Dlamini from the Times. Mr. Matona, you've used the word we're going to have we are stuck with load shedding for a long time. And I just want you to be very precise, because to tell the nation, how long is your long time? Are we stuck with 10 years of load shedding? How long is your long time?
Good. Thank you. Any further questions on that side of the room who I ignored? There's a hand just behind the cameraman who I can't see who you are, so I'm sorry.
Yes, I'm Sipamandla from Business Report. I just wanted to ask, what will happen if you don't get this 3 billion rand bailout that you are asking for? Number two, you've got existing guarantees that you have not exhausted. Why don't you just use that, go to the financial institutions and say, we need money?
Good. Thank you. Hand in front, and then we'll take I believe there's callers on the chorus line, which we'll go to as well. So please go ahead, sir.
Hi there, it's Gareth here from News 24. I'd just like to ask about the solar energy rebate program. I believe that it's been passed on to the Energy Department, or it's going to be passed on to the Energy Department. Shouldn't Eskom rather hang on to this to sort of, keep a lot of that electricity flowing into its grid? Thanks.
Good. Thank you. Can we ask if there are any calls coming through on the chorus line? Apparently not. Okay, can we take one more hand? You, sir, right at the back.
Okay. Bianca from eNCA. In terms of the 2008 load shedding that was stopped, what were some of the strategies that you employed at the time, and are you going to revisit those to try and avoid the next stretch of load shedding?
Good, thank you. Can we close that round at that point? Mr. Matona, thank you.
I did answer the question around the likelihood of load shedding and what the meaning of that heat map was. But I'm going to ask the chief of generation, because that slide will be based on what happens in generation, to perhaps clarify better. Maybe I couldn't get through properly. The DP's visit, this thing, government cabinet initiatives to support Eskom is from December. I think middle of December. We've been working with government technocrats here at Eskom with regard to what are the interventions that government can undertake to assist us. And all of them are informed about where do we get this 3,000 megawatt capacity that we need to stay the maintenance course. All of those engagements. So we're looking at cogeneration, short-term IPPs, gas, both short-term initiatives and much longer-term initiatives, as well as more shorter-term initiatives in support of Eskom, including helping us with our financial constraints as they relate to diesel. That's more or less the scope of the work that has been done in this thing, which is called the war room. It's been largely the technocrats working with Eskom executives. I've been part of that process. It's got a political dimension of, which is the relevant ministers, public enterprises, Minister of Energy, and other ministers in the economic sector. As you will have read, the Deputy President is supposed to provide political oversight of all of that. The purpose of today was for him to come and experience this process. That was the purpose of that visit, to come and see and engage with the participant and the ministers in regard to what the progress is. I am told that there will be communication led by government through GCIS with regard to all of that work. I'm not at liberty to go into the substance of that. What I can say, however, is that we welcome this. We welcome government coming to the support of Eskom in recognition of the fact that we alone cannot be able to get ourselves out of the current situation. We need government support on a number of dimensions. So we welcome that initiative on the part of government. And so going forward, because what it says actually is that the government co-owns the problem. The government co-owns the problem, because some of the factors that have led us into this situation have to do with policy. And that brings me to your question around the tariff, because we don't name our price. Our price is set by the regulator. There is recognition that it is not a cost-reflective price, and that has to be addressed. We appreciate that the way you deal with addressing that problem of Eskom not getting a cost-reflective tariff is not to introduce a price shock to the economy by having a sharp rise in prices. But you can correct that through a smooth and phased approach over time. I think that principle is accepted, that it will be a phasing in. That transition to a cost reflectivity will be a process. You know what I mean? An event. It will be a process, so that you don't introduce shock to the economy, which is in fact an economy that is already anemic, as it were. We as Eskom appreciate that in address, you don't create another problem when you're trying to solve one problem. But we think that it's feasible, and the principle of us moving in that direction has been agreed. It's a question of that being implemented, and that's going to be part of the future going forward for the company. I'm going to let my colleagues pick up on the other questions.
Just talking about the 3 billion, what happens if we don't get it, and the guarantees. I think the way the Eskom board in EXCO has approached the budget is, and I think that's one thing maybe we must set out clearly, just also on to complete that question, is we seem to use funding interchangeably for budget, cash flow, and for actual just income statement. So I think we need to be clearer that when we're talking about Eskom running out of money, we're talking about Eskom running out of budget. Eskom management has actually said what is prudent. We've cut our cloth accordingly to what the regulator gave us. We've made deep cuts in many line items, and we've said, okay, this is what we can allocate to diesel, for example. And so we've said even then the board has agreed to do more than we originally had in our budget. And there's a limit to which you can actually continue to put the company at risk without certainty that you're going to be able to recover the funds. It's irresponsible to continue to borrow and spend if you don't know that you're going to recover it. And that's exactly the same issue with the guarantees. You know, you can't issue debt on the back of a guarantee when you don't know where the funds are going to come from to actually, fund that debt, that repayment. It's irresponsible. So the guarantees, the way we use them sparingly, in order to access funds, to access particular products that actually are probably better value for money. But we certainly will not be burdening our balance sheet further without certainty. And I think the Chief Executive alluded to that. That is probably our biggest outcome that we require from all of these discussions, is certainty as to when we're receiving money, how the tariff profile is going to unfold, and from that perspective. So Eskom has got a funding program. Also, when we did that balancing act, we put a funding program of 250 billion rand together. That is what we believe is a prudent limit, and we are implementing that and executing that very responsibly. In between, we obviously have ups and downs, leads and lags in terms of funding, and so we have times where we have a lesser buffer and a greater buffer in our finances, but we actually obviously in daily mode, and we're managing our finances accordingly. So we are obviously, we knew we were going to be very stressed given the decision by the regulator, and we have, I think, squeezed everything out of it, and that's why it seems like only 3 billion rand more for diesel, but it's not. It might be the straw that breaks the camel's back. So until we get certainty that we're going to recover it, we will not be spending it. So it's just we've got a new board. We don't want them to go to jail yet.
I will deal with the last two questions. The question on the blackout, I'll leave to transmission and the system operator. Needless to just say there that no utility wants to go to a blackout. And we've got protocols and safety nets that we put in place to make sure that we stay very far from that. But transmission will deal with that. Likelihood of load shedding. Again, the CE has said this, that we're definitely not in the business of load shedding. We're in the business of supplying power, making money, getting returns so that we can do the maintenance and operate the system. And therefore, the whole of Eskom, of generation, of everyone within that value chain is focused in making sure that we can keep the lights on and run a sustainable and a reliable power system. That is our number one job. So we do not plan load shedding. Load shedding is an outcome, is a consequence when everything else fails. So our whole focus is making sure that we can turn the system performance around and make load shedding as remote and as distant from us as possible. No engineer goes to varsity to train for load shedding. So again, and by the way, when we load shed, as Eskom, we take pain, as customers and as employees and as everyone. So it's the last thing that is in our mind, and I think that must be very clear. Last one, again, Deva will also add here on lessons from the 2008 load shedding. Four key lessons for me that stand up. The first one is integration, so that you can talk and share the risks and make sure that you don't line up your risks to actually take you even further. So that integration and talking between the Cape and the northern part of the country, between generation and transmission and distribution is very important. So one of the biggest lessons was integration. The second one was communication, so that at any time you know the state of the network and what the other hand is doing, so that you can kind of synergize and pull in the same direction. The third one for me was risk assessment. That when you take a decision that could have consequential risk on the next person, And therefore, you have to be thorough in your risk assessment so that, as the CE said, you don't fix this problem and create another problem down the line. And the last one for me was a command center when we started with what today we call an ERCC, Emergency Response Command Center. Because once we have that command center that overarches the whole program, then you can pull the strings and get the best back for your money. Those are just few lessons. Devon?
Just to add on to that, I think some of the issues we did in 2008 was, one of the big problems in 2008 was the issue of coal, making sure you had sufficient coal quality. We are in a different position compared to 2008. We still sit with similar issues in 2008 around quality, but quantity we sit in a better position, so that's one of the issues we've carried through since 2008. I think, like Mongezi said, much more agility, much more resilience in the teams, monitoring, checking up things, picking it up things much quicker. On the issue of diesel, one of the big problems in 2008 was we couldn't get diesel quick enough to replenish our tanks, and that's one of the reasons why we ran into such deep load shedding days on end into like level 3, 4,000 megawatts. We've got a better supply chain of diesel now, which means we've got some better relationships. We still battle with diesel, but in terms of getting diesel in the plant, we're in a better position than we were in 2008, but there's still room for improvement on that, and that's what we're busy working on. The other issue is we made decisions during that period. We were also a bit lucky. 2008, if you remember, 2009 was the economic financial crisis. The commodity market crashed in terms of that. The prices went down. We also saw a big drop in demand. So we had that breathing space after 2008. And that's one of the reasons why we survived that period. And that's why we never ran the gas turbines during that period. But as the demand started picking up after the World Cup 2010, 2011, one of the levers we had to do, and this is what we discussed before, and those are the decisions, like the chief executive said, those are the operational decisions you make. What levers do you use in order to make sure the light stays on? And one of the levers was maintenance. Now we've made that decision. That's one of the things we won't be carrying forward, is to say you'll sacrifice your plant and your maintenance in order to keep the lights on. So it's a different decision that we've made now, and that is why you have to find other levers to compensate for the fact that you will not shift around maintenance. So I just want to add on to Mongezi on that. Then the last two issues, one was about the issue of the solar rebate program. I think the big concern there is the rebates going to continue or not to continue? I want to ask Andrew to deal with that. Andrew's day-paying job is that on IDM. So Andrew will deal with that. And then the last question is about the blackout. We have answered this before, but I think it's good to hear directly from the system operator, the person that actually determines when we load shed and what are the chances of blackout. So Robbie van Heerden will answer that question after Andrew.
And Robbie, when you do, try again in an accessible way to explain the difference between load shedding and blackouts. I know this may impact the way it's written about, but maybe not. But just explain, because they mean two different things in spite of the way that they are written about in the media.
Thank you. It's kind of nervous answering questions rather than facilitate, so excuse my throat. The solar water heating program in the country is a program of the Department of Energy. It's very important that it's funded by the Department of Energy, unlike all the activities which have been discussed today. This is not funded through the tariff or through funding of that Caroline of Cheese. It's funded by the Department of Energy. Eskom has been helping with the administration of that program. We're focusing on core business. We're focusing on getting the maintenance done and all the other activities which Mr. Matona has explained. Within the solar water heating program, we've got engineers, we've got project managers. We need them to go to power stations and the like to do all the work that has been outlined here. So it has been agreed with the Department of Energy that the administration of the solar water heating program will revert back to the Department of Energy. Department of Energy will make decisions as to how they would move forward from this point, but certainly from Eskom's point of view, we've been very supportive of this program. We have to date installed 400,000 solar water heating systems, so it's been a very big program, and we do appreciate that. Robbie.
Take you through, maybe just shortly. Working. Okay. Just to take you shortly through what a blackout is and actually what we do on the system. We haven't blacked out the system. We may have taken out certain areas, and what we're really doing is rotational load shedding. So what happens is we've got generation sitting on one side, we've got a demand on the other side. We have insufficient generation to meet the demand. So how do we manage that in the end of the day? It's critical that the two balance. Because as you know, and I'm going to talk a little technical, but I think everyone understands it, we need the system to run at 50 hertz. I think if you look on the back of your little computers and that, you'll see 50 hertz is what we do. So as soon as the one gets too big, if the generation is too big for the load, then the generators speed up and we go above 50. If the load is too big, in the end of the day, for the generators, they slow down. And this is the critical thing that we can't afford to happen. We can never, in the end of the day, let the system move away from what it's designed to do. So we, in the end of the day, load shed when the load gets too much. So what we are doing is we are preventing a blackout by doing load shedding. It is just saying, instead of our demand now being 36,000, it's 34,000 because we've taken 2,000 off for load shedding. Now the generation capacity is sufficient to meet the demand. So that's what we do and try and manage. Because we never, and as the CEO said earlier on, a blackout is something we will never ever allow to happen, or as to the best of our ability. Should I say, it's not an impossibility. The Italians said it wouldn't happen, and then it happened. So it is a possibility in any power system to have a blackout, but it is the thing that we protect against the most. My job is not in the end of the day to prevent load shedding. It is in the end of the day to ensure the integrity of the network and that we never ever go into a blackout. A blackout for the country would be disastrous.
Sorry. Do tell us what exactly is the blackout, because that's a question that keeps coming up.
The blackout is when we lose all our generation. So what happens is this load, in the end of the day, we don't manage it. The generators slow down, and they trip. And all the generators trip. So once you've lost all the generation in the country, you've got to try and bring it back in the end of the day. And that's a blackout, when we lose all the generation for the country. So every single generator and generating plant actually goes down and trips. Now, some of them will island, and I don't want to go into the whole technicality, but others won't. And to bring that system back again could take us 2 weeks. And that's what you often read in a lot of the papers and technical reports. You'll see they talk about 2 weeks. It can be up to 2 weeks where you will be without power. The New York blackout took 8 to 9 days, and it had people next door to it supplying it. So we in South Africa don't have other big utilities that can help us bring back the system. We've got to do it on our own. We've got to start generating and picking up all over the country. And the dynamics around it is huge. It's not an easy thing to sort out. It's very intricate because the system is designed to run at 50 hertz with all the generation on. That's the size of our network that we run. It's not designed to start off at a very, very, very low generation point and to pick it up. So I don't know, I feel like a lecturer here. But is that fine?
Chairman, just to add on to that, to practically illustrate what Robbie said is, when we do load shedding on stage 1, we do anything between 700 to 1,000 megawatts, which means we're still supplying over 95% of the power in the country. If your demand is 30,000 megawatts, that means you're still supplying 29. If you go into stage 2, which is around 2,000 megawatts, you're still supplying over 90% of the country. When you go into stage 3, which is a deep load shedding, 4,000 megawatts, you're still supplying 86% of the load in the country. So that can't be a blackout. A blackout is when the demand is 30,000 megawatts and you're supplying 0. Nothing. That's a blackout. So when you're supplying 86%, we still can't see this being communicated. We're having rolling blackouts. It logically does not make sense. That's why it's called rotational load shedding, not a blackout.
See, what happens is that when I'm being load shed, it's dark everywhere where I am. I imagine that the whole country is in darkness, and I think what Tava is explaining is that the majority of the country still have lights. It's just that my part, and it's rotational, so somebody else is going to also have their time when they've been load shed. So, yeah.
Andrew, Chairman. Just in closing, I just want to make an observation. Kusile is practically down the road from here. So my advice would be to the media take time to go and visit these plants and see for your own benefit the scale of these operations, the enormity of the problem, the complexity. You'll get a sense of the complexity of the whole project just by simply laying your eyes on what's going on. I'll give you a simple example. Roman here talks about the reconnection of the pipes from the boiler to the turbine. Now that is definitely not a plumber's job, not by any stretch of the imagination. Most of us can walk standing upright inside those pipes. So you're talking about a complex engineering logistics problem, just reconnecting pipes. And if you say to somebody, why does it take so long to reconnect pipes? If you have a sense of what it is that you're dealing with, then your mind will help you to understand where we are and why these things are happening the way they're happening. I just wanted to make that observation.
Chairman, for closing the session, Mr. Matona, to you and your team, thank you very much. To members of the media, thank you for your questions. The presentation, as always, will be on our internet site under the Media Room homepage. Thank you very much.
But if we're doing it with a gas, if we're doing it with a gas, we're gonna need our system. This would be an alternative. Yes.